Right, here we go. Living now, living right now. This is L. Nathan here, your host here for this next hour at WFO 1080 AM on your, not 1080, 96.5 FM on your dial from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock this morning. Our principal sponsor, of course, the Community Action Organization of Western New York, still fighting the war on poverty, now in our 52nd year. This is L. Nathan here, your host here. I want to welcome you, for all of you again to this hour of insight, introspection, and interpretation of facts, events, and trends affecting you right here and right now in Buffalo and Western New York community, and in fact, connecting to communities all across the country. Each month, we focus on things we think will be of interest to you, which will serve to interest you and will serve to motivate you. I'm having gas for some reason or other. Serve to motivate you. To connect up to the broader issues that affect our communities here in Western New York. As the Spirit moves us, we'll break into our regular format to discuss timely issues and circumstances that we just can't responsibly avoid. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be having a conversation with Dr. Umar Johnson, who is a school psychologist, and he is author of the book Psychoacademic Holocaust, and I think we got him on, right? Dr. Johnson, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
All right, Dr. Umar Johnson. He is a school psychologist, author of the book Psychoacademic Holocaust. I got that title right?
Yes, you do.
Okay. He's been championing the effort to get parents and responsible officials to recognize and resist what he refers to as the war against black boys. He has dedicated his career in fighting the psychoacademic war on the side of African American boys, and uses his experience to educate parents on how they can take charge of their children's education. He urges the community to take a stand to change the disproportionate graduation rates of African American students, especially black male students who have the lowest graduation rates in the country. Dr. Johnson, when I was looking at your text, Psychoacademic War, that refers to a war being waged by the public education system against young children and children of African ancestry in the United States, particularly African boys, what exactly do you mean by that phraseology, the psychoacademic war?
Yes, sir. In conversation, I generally refer to it, as you stated, as a psychoacademic war. In reality, I was referring to psychoacademic holocaust. War implies that the two sides engaged in a struggle. And holocaust implies that there's only one side engaged in a struggle. And the other side, unfortunately, has been victimized because it doesn't recognize that in fact there is a war taking place against it. So because we're not fighting back, this war is much. Miseducation stage 1 is deliberately miseducating black boys. Special education stage 2 is deliberately misdiagnosed on purpose. Black boys with such growing disabilities cannot be proven disorders as reading disabilities and math disabilities and ADHD and conduct disorder, which takes us to stage 3. Debilitating psychiatric medication, now the ritalin concept, the Adderall, the Concerta, the Cycler, the Medicaid, takes us to stage 5, juvenile detention and incarceration. That's when the drug has fried the young man's mind so much, he's not able to function anymore. So now they take us to the juvenile detention center, and then that takes us to stage 5, which is psychological frustration and alienation. This is when he becomes the so-called thug, the angry black male, and then that takes us to stage 6, premature extermination at the hands of another black male, also suffering the debilitating effects of the psychoacademic holocaust.
That is just so depressing to hear.
But the thing is, let me tell you what's so depressing about it. Not that it's happening, but because the African American community has the financial and intellectual wherewithal to reverse this problem, eliminate it completely on its own. We are a $1 trillion economy. In 2016, we spent $2 billion on Air Jordan, $600 million on McDonald's, $9 billion in weed. In 2016, Black America purchased twice the amount of Mercedes Benzes as white America, although white America has more than twice the amount of wealth as black folks. So we clearly could solve this problem on our own. But the truth of the matter is, the Department of Education don't care much about black children, but neither do black people.
And you know, Dr. Johnson, that is so profoundly insightful. We do a lot of discussion about these kinds of issues on this program. And one of the things that I just want our audience to just wrap your mind around this reality. African American people as a whole have a gross domestic product. You know, in other words, if you add up all savings and income and our real estate and all that stuff that belongs to African people together, it comes to $1.7 trillion. Now, I don't know how many people get their minds wrapped around trillions, right? But trillions is a lot of money. That's a lot of zeros, right? And when you talk about that kind of money, if we were an economy, a national economy, we would be in the top 11 economies on earth. It would seem to me that if we could just make a decision amongst ourselves, which I know is not as easy as it is to say, but if we could make a decision amongst ourselves to stop looking for other people to do for us and just invest in ourselves, make sure that all of our children have African adult that is around them almost all the time, that you have almost no, as a child, you have almost no completely unsupervised time. When I say supervised, I don't mean somebody holding your hand, but somebody who's in the area that you're in. So when something happens, there's somebody to intervene, right? If we could keep us around caring adults all the time, we would get wired into thinking that being safe as a child is normal. I think that we think being safe as a child is abnormal in lots of parts of African communities around the country. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, you're absolutely correct. In fact, I would argue that in the post-Constitution era, these 49 years or so, that we'll be celebrating 60 years this coming April 4th, 49 years since the assassination of Dr. King, has been the period of the normalization of dysfunction in Black America.
Yep.
We have normalized dysfunction. Police genocide is now normal. Teenage pregnancy is normal. Only 1 out of every 4 black boys graduating from high school is normal. Black Jesus still in our black churches is normal. We have normalized the dysfunction of our community.
Yeah. Dr. Johnson, we have Patricia Elliott. You just have to kind of.
Can you hear me?
Well, I don't know if you can hear on your set. We have Patricia Elliott, who is the assistant director of our Better Schools, Better Neighborhoods initiative, who's joined us in the studio. She's the one that sort of found you for us, so we wanted to give her an opportunity to talk. What our Better Schools, Better Neighborhoods initiative is about is exactly what you were talking about. How do we marshal the resources of ourselves to help us do the one thing you know you can win on if you do it right? If you get your kids through the education process where they come out on the other side able to go into a degree conferring or a vocation certification program without requiring remediation, you've spent your 13 years of education of your child wisely. If you don't get that done, you might as well just throw that money in the wind, right? And so we try to work on the how do we help the community to get better so that we can help us educate our kids better so that we can grow a better pie for all of us. So, Patricia, can you speak up? Can you
I
hear
can try. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't.
You're kind of far.
Yeah,
See if,
my headphones aren't working.
try this one over here and see if you can hear her now.
Can you hear me?
Still can't hear?
Yeah,
Try. Yeah, you guys sort of switch around your mics. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you
Okay,
go.
good morning. Good morning. How are you today? Excellent. I can barely hear. I can't hear in here or anything.
That's okay. Just
Okay.
you-
Well, I want to say good morning. Thank you very much for coming on. This is a heavy topic of discussion. Our children are at stake here. what's going on in our education system with the way things were created to bring our children down. I mean, children being placed in special education, the district suggesting to parents that your child needs special education, and you know as a mother your child doesn't. That's the conversation I can bring, because they tried to tell me that about my daughter, and it's just not true. It's just not true.
You know, Dr. Johnson, you raised a point, and it wasn't in the book, or it might have been in the book. I don't know if I saw it there or if I saw it in one of the articles that I read on some of the speeches that you have given. But help me understand if what I'm thinking makes sense. I get the understanding that if a child is placed in special education, the district gets about twice as much money for that child than they would get for a child who was not in special education. And that, now this may just be the cynical person in me, so if I'm wrong, you could tell me, I can take it, right? But the impression I get is that districts are putting kids into special education unnecessarily because there's sort of superficial things that are going on that allow them to be able to mark that child for special education. The district then gets, you know, twice as much money for those kids, then provides low budget kind of services, special ed services, because the kids don't really need that much service.
They don't need it.
And then they take the surplus and use that to flush out their general fund and, you know, balance their books. Now that sounds like a very cynical way of looking at the world, but
it's true.
I got to ask you, Dr. Umar, am I making sense, or is this just the cynical nature in me? Right. So you know there's a mother load of people out here that are concerned about this, right?
September 9th, we want all the parents to come out, we want all the children to come out, we want the elders, the activists, the politicians, the preachers, we want them all to come out. But if I'm a parent and I'm uneducated about special ed law, I'm uneducated about special ed process, if a teacher, counselor, nurse, principal, psychologist, reading specialist comes to me and says, your son is struggling, but we have a program to help him. And if you put him in this program, it limits the amount of days we can suspend from school. It limits our ability to retain him from moving up in grade. It gives him a smaller class size. It gives him a slower pace of instruction. It gives him more time to take his test. The way they market
That's the 504.
makes it seem like it is a blessing, when in all reality it is a curse.
It is a curse.
There you go.
Wow.
Now, you know, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that's the grade that my daughter was said to have been ready for special education. And for me, I said to them, you know, okay, I was a younger mother. This was my 30-year-old daughter now. When she was a child, they recommended her to special education. They put her on medication, something called Silert, and they're telling me that this is, I went to an IEP meeting, and they're telling me this is what was best for my child. Now, I'm a young mother. I'm married, but I'm a young mother. And I'm looking at these people, and I'm saying, okay. So I go for it. And I let them give my daughter this medication, and when I saw what the medication was doing to my child.
Mm-hmm.
She had all kinds of nervous tics. She could not function properly. She was
These are
angrier
powerful
than
drugs, right?
ever.
Right.
And I took her off the medicine. I said, you know what, this is done. I told my daughter, I said, baby, you all right. You're no longer sick. You don't need this medicine anymore. And I took her off.
So I need for Dr. Johnson to help people understand. I had a girl in 1990 who was in one of my preschool programs at Hare Community College. And I couldn't even test her. She was so slow, I couldn't even test her orally on a California Achievement Test. She just couldn't respond to the test. It was clear that there was something there was like a resistance in her. It wasn't that she didn't have the innate intelligence to learn, but she didn't have the ability to handle being tested. Something, it's like almost like hormones, erupted inside her or something like that. But anyway, when I got her, she was 18 years old. They had given her what she thought was a high school diploma. Please don't laugh about this.
Oh,
right?
this is a problem.
She got one of those leather, Doctor, you've seen these things, these leather books, and it says, it's got like a sheepskin in it, and it has like a seal for your local school district on it. But if you read it, the word graduation does not exist on the document at all.
Certificate of attendance.
It was really a certificate of attendance,
attendance,
right?
And
but I had to take this child. It took me almost 2 years from being untestable. I actually had to hire somebody for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 years to get her to the point where she could read it better than a 7th grade level and count at a 6th grade level, which was like miraculous. She's still working for the HSBC bank, right now. And it was only because we were able to do that, and I had the authority, at ECC to be able to move those kind of dollars for this single child, because you couldn't teach her in a group session. She just couldn't respond to that. But I say that to say that even the children who test where they may appear to be retarded in the test often are not really retarded. There's something inside the child that reacts to what you're doing to them when you're testing them. And so they just don't respond to the test. But it's not like the child doesn't have there's intellectual stuff going on in the child's head.
Yeah.
The child's just not giving it to you. Am I on something there, Dr. Johnson? Mm-hmm.
You cannot reduce one number, the brilliance and intelligence and the complexity of a child's intellect, and take all of that and reduce it down to a single score. But this is what white folks do. They love to quantify things that cannot be quantified. But it's done is because in a society based on racial privilege and in a society based on class structure, you have to justify while the rich are rich, and you have to justify while the poor are poor. So this goes back to the early genocidal foundations of American social beliefs and politics, which is to say that they justify why the top 1% of Americans own more than half of the wealth of the entire country by saying they were more intelligent, they were more brilliant,
Yep.
Wow.
they excelled better in school. And when we look at the poor, especially black folks, they were saying, no, they're intellectually, backwards. They have monkeys.
Right. Right.
So to make a long story short, testing in the 21st century serves the same function as the Jim Crow time did in the 20th century.
Yeah.
Testing is the new way of denying opportunity to black people without saying it's because you're black. You just simply say it's going on.
That's right. Make it a meritocracy. Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Johnson, I want you to hang right on. We're going to have to take a moment and take care of our sponsors because they pay for the program. So if you all just stick with us, we will see the side of the break here at Living right now.
Wow.
What?
I think he's still on. Is he still on?
No, he said he could keep him on.
Okay, cool.
So how's it going so far?
What yeah, we're getting to it. We're getting to it. We still don't know whether he's a doctor or not, but we're getting. Never mind.
I didn't hear what you said.
He's such a smart aleck, you know.
You starting already this morning?
Who, me?
Hare said you starting already.
See, that's how he roll, you know. See, he says smart aleck stuff and don't even know he said it, you know. Uh-oh, did he? Okay, we have a caller.
Financing program that can help turn your house into your dream home. Call 332-3773 for more info. It's the Home Improvement Resource Program, restoring value to neighborhoods across Hare County.
This is Doyle 1-2.
Brought to you by the Community Action Organization of Hare County.
All right, welcome back to Living Now here at WFO 96.5 FM on your
right.
dial. And we're here, we're having a remote, I guess, whatever you call it, interview with Dr. Umar Johnson, who is the author of Academic Holocaust, and is really championing us grappling with the reality that our children are under attack, particularly our African and male children are under attack, and that this is a systemic situation that is going on, and we're going to have to respond to it in a very systemic way. So, Dr. Johnson, we have Eva Doyle, who is a longtime educator. She was an educator for about 33, 34 years. She's been retired for about 8 or 9 years, but she's not really retired because she's been teaching in the community ever since then, and she's working on her PhD right now. So I want to get her thoughts and your thoughts to her thoughts. Mother Doyle, are you there?
Yes. I'm calling to say hello to Dr. Johnson. Listen, when he came to Buffalo 2 years ago, I hosted him at the very level.
He was talking about that.
Yes, and listen, he called me Mother Doyle also.
There you go.
Dr. Johnson is so good to hear your voice. I don't have anything to say except I wanted to let one thing. I've been retired 13 years.
13 years.
13 going on 14.
And I want to say this. When I taught in school, I very seldom referred children to special ed because I knew what was going to happen. And there were so many teachers who were so lazy, who didn't want to challenge our children and teach them the correct way. But I don't want to take up, I'm going to be there at the church to listen to you, I'm going to cover you for the criteria. I just wanted to say hello and welcome back to Buffalo. Thank you so much.
All right. Excellent, excellent. Dr. Johnson, this whole issue of IQ tests, I found that to be very intriguing because I took an IQ test when I was maybe 7 years old, and they said like I had 140, IQ, and took another one, about 6 or 7 years after that, said like I had 147, 148 IQ, and so on. I didn't understand what that meant in the context of me learning. I had people that were better at chemistry than me, they weren't as good at trigonometry, but they were better at chemistry than me. I didn't see what the connection was between what these tests were and what I was actually doing in school. And I wonder if what you were saying seems to me to explain that what they do is they create something that sort of makes a fake meritocracy out of academics. You know what I mean? If you perform well on the test, you earn the right to be treated correctly in the education system. And if you don't perform well on the test, it's because of you. There's something wrong with you, and that's why we're not going to give you the quality education that we're going to give to other people. I hope that that's not what's going on, but that's my sense of what is taking place. Am I on the money on that?
Oh, you're absolutely on the money. Instead of looking at the test and saying, why is it that African American children categorically and systematically score lower than white children? Let's look at this test and see why an entire race of children are doing less well than another race. Instead of saying, let's look at the test, they say, no, we're going to blame the children. But what I want to add to the conversation is that 15-point test gap over which so many conversations and panels and debates and discussions have been had was deliberately created. That was not an accident of testing. The test was created, again, to justify the racial hierarchy, to justify white privilege. We need to understand something really, really well here. If black children categorically outscore white children, let's just say, for the rest of 2017, black children are showing that they are 10 to 15 points smarter than white children. America has a major problem in things. Why? Because if black children are more intelligent than white children, how do we justify so many of them in prison? How do we justify that only have one black working on a doctorate at this university, another black in law school, only 2 of them in med school, only a couple in the engineering program? How do you keep Harvard all white? How do you keep Yale all white? How do you keep the University of Pennsylvania, most prestigious elite academic graduate program, how can you keep them all white when the black children are clearly more intelligent than white children? They can't have that, which means the test must always produce a false positive suggesting that whites are more intelligent, because that's the only way you can protect and maintain the American racial hierarchy as it is today. Once black children outscore white children, it will cause a social revolution. And because of that, I can promise you will never see the test that shows black children outscoring white children. You will never see it. Because the minute black kids can see white kids on any test, that test is destroyed and the new one is replaced.
Yeah. Dr. Johnson, I want to kind of spin us in a slightly different direction, because I think that some of what we're talking about is sort of systemically deliberate, and some of what we're talking about is maybe quasi-deliberate, but it's almost like an unintended but real consequence. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I was doing some analysis on who actually teaches us at the elementary and high school level. And the numbers I looked at for the year that ended, school year that ended for 2013, was that almost 82% of all of the teachers in the public school system, elementary and high school, were Caucasian teachers. And even some of those Hispanic teachers are actually Caucasian teachers that just happen to speak Spanish. I don't know, some people don't know that speaking another language is not the same thing as being a different race. But that's another conversation. That's too hard for us to work our way through. But my point is that 76% in that analysis of all teachers were women, and 82% at minimum of those women were Caucasian women. So that means better than 60% of the people who are teaching our kids are Caucasian women. Now, we've gone through this civil rights revolution in which the primary beneficiaries of the civil rights revolution have been Caucasian women, not African people, even though it was supposedly a struggle for African people's rights. It's Caucasian women who seem to have benefited the most by that. And a culture, I think, has formed among women that is manifested in the women that teach in the school systems, where the male children are looked at as perpetrators and the female children are looked at as the victims or future victims of the perpetrators. And that gets into how things are talked about. Female children are being encouraged to go into, math and science and non-traditional this and that. And the boy children are treated as if, well, y'all always been there, so we don't have to do anything, to help you. That's not a very scientific way that I express that, but does that make sense, the thought process that I just provided there?
Oh, it most certainly does. And I think, obviously, because white females are a protected class in the United States, and because they are a protected class in the United States, we seldom have open, honest conversations about the role of racism in education. 9 out of every 10 articles, news specials, interviews, or books operate from the premise that there's something wrong with the child in the family, and that's why black children struggle. Because they are protected class, white women have never, nor will they ever, be held responsible for their role, in particular their racist attitudes, and how that affects the outcomes of black children, even though university research, one of America's most prestigious universities, clearly shows that there is racial bias in the classroom. And it clearly has demonstrated consistently over the years that a child's academic output and their quality of growth is directly a result of the faith and the quality of instruction and the attitudes that were projected to them about themselves by their white teachers. And I would say that one of the greatest conspiracies and oversights of the civil rights and affirmative action movement has been the fact that neither the civil rights bill nor the efforts of affirmative action, which we know has benefited gays and white women more than it has ever benefited black folks, but yet we still never sought to eliminate the racial bias in teaching employment and predominantly black school districts. I mean, how can you talk about eliminating discrimination in public accommodations and services? I mean, you went to the there, you went to the Greyhound buses and you did it there, you went to the hotels and did it there, you went to city government and you did it there, but they never brought those types of promises into the school system. When they integrated our children beginning in 1954, they left the teachers behind. And no one has ever dealt with that.
And you know, that's so interesting because it brings to mind a paradigm that was taught to me by James Foreman, the author of the Black Manifesto. He taught me this back in 1970. He said, be careful who you ally yourself with. Because sometimes the people who seem like they're on your side, they have their own issues, their own agenda. And you end up having to carry their agenda as baggage, you know, behind you as you're trying to move forward. So you have Caucasian women who obviously have been discriminated against and marginalized in many ways, even though they were half the custodians of the wealth, you know, of Caucasian people. They were marginalized in many ways, weren't allowed to vote until whatever it was, you know, 1920, 21, whatever it was, 1916. But never dehumanized. Right, right. But we wind up carrying, they were wound up, you know, being a part of the ideation of what the civil rights movement was all about. And because they were so able and had large numbers and they had access to everything because they were married to everything, they were able, you know, fairly quickly to get a lot of momentum going their way. And we were less likely to react against them because they were supposedly more positively oriented towards the African civil rights movement. And so we ended up, you know, not looking at these people that we thought were our allies. Maybe they weren't really our allies after all. I'm just positing that out there for you, Dr. Johnson. Sometimes I hate, you know, saying this stuff because it sounds like I'm so cynical about things. I'm just trying to help us to understand that there are dynamics that are going on here that Dr. Johnson is trying to point out to us that we have to grasp in our heads why these things are so important. I'm not mad at somebody else. I understand they're fighting for their own interests, but I got to fight for my own interest, okay? I can't not fight for mine because I'm trying to protect yours.
Yes.
Dr. Johnson, help me. Pull me out of the basket that I put myself in.
Who doesn't absolutely know that black people are never going to get equality in this country unless they're willing to pay the price for that. Okay, they know this. Yet still they will argue that marching and protesting and voting and praying will change things. They know it's not the truth, but it protects whatever benefits they have. It protects their job. It protects their retirement. It protects their child attending a
Yeah. Trish, you had something you wanted to plug in there?
Yes, I've been wanting to plug it for a minute. I'm a mother, and I'm just going to represent black mothers just sitting here. I'm just typical black mother, single, working one job, and raising children. And we have to deal with the teachers in the school as it relates to our children. You know, when our children are so-called misbehaving or not getting it or having these issues, and these teachers are recommending that our children be sent to special education, or being told that our children is bad, or being told that something is wrong with our children, we, black mothers, have to deal with these white teachers, white people in charge of our children. We have to co-parent, not co-parent, but co-educate our children. If you are educating my child and you don't have a care in your heart for my child, you're just here doing a 6-7 hour stint, you know, you don't take my child home with you. And so when I'm trying to I'm trying to say this. Black women are the most endangered group in the world, what I'm saying is. So when we complain or when we talk about our issues to the teacher who we're trying to have a connection with for our child, they don't really recognize our situation. They say, well, you should have, but they're basing that on their socialization, where they're coming from. They don't live in our community, they don't shop in our community, they don't work in our community, and our children engage them only from this point to that point. So how can you decide for me that my child has a problem, or there are problems with my child, and how can you decide that for me? I'm sitting here wanting to fight right now.
So I want you to turn this around for Dr. Johnson. And given that reality, okay, you know, your children are literally in enemy territory when they're in these public schools and so on. But you can't change that reality. They're going to be sent, and you're going to send them into enemy territory every single school day. So given that, what should parents and the community itself be doing to blunt this so that we can make this? You know, my first wife used to always say, you know, take lemons and turn them into lemonade. How do you turn this into lemonade?
Well, for me, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be discussing when I do come to Buffalo on September 9th at the St. Luke AME Zion Church. I'm going to be talking about an organization I started a year ago now, or a little more than a year old, the National Independent Black Parent Association. Actually, our next training conference will be in North Carolina on August 15th and 16th, so I'm hoping I can motivate some of the brothers and sisters in Buffalo, New York, to join me in Durham, North Carolina, to get the necessary training that allows them to go back home and operate that chapter. Because once they have to organize. I can't tell you how many times I've been involved in assisting parents and advocating for children, where only to find out after dealing with one situation, there were 4, 5, 6, 7 other parents in the same school with the exact same situation, and in many cases were in the same classroom as this parent's child. And it bothers me because what it says is we're not organized. There's nothing more powerful than to walk into a principal's office and say, we have an issue of white teachers singling out black boys for punishment. If I say that for only one black boy, the teacher and the principal and the assistant superintendent will automatically say they're making an assumption. We don't have this problem with other black children. We only have this assumption about racism out there. I come into the classroom and it's 4 or 5 parents who are all saying the same thing is happening. It is no longer about individuals. And we now have to address the issue from a systematic, institutional perspective. And that adds to our power to leverage that situation. So we gotta organize. That is the passion. If you organize a little, you get a little done. If you organize something, you get something done. If you don't organize at all, you don't get anything. I would say, as Marcus Garvey said 100 years ago, the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization.
Yep.
And probably is multiplied tenfold by the fact that everyone dealing with that same problem is not operating in the system of oneness and unification.
Yep. Listen, I don't know if I had given a number before to the program, so we usually get a few more callers calling in. The number again is 837-1112. That's 837-1112. Trish, you had something you were about to plug in there?
I was just going to say that, you know, Dr. Johnson, you said it, white women are protected. They're protected. This position as being a teacher is a protected position. Black women who are raising their sons, we're not protected. We're out here fighting on our own in a lot of ways. And even I've read somewhere recently that when you see black people struggling, white people don't really recognize it as a struggle. Oh, that's not that. You know, they don't have real first-hand understanding. It's just theory for them. But they're making decisions and making laws and putting in injustices or whatever you want to call it against our babies. You know, how can we work with that? I say parents, mothers, you know your children. Don't let anybody tell you something's going on with your child without you talking to your child first and understanding your child. That's what I have to say. We have to listen to our children as mothers.
Dr. Johnson?
I absolutely agree with that. Now, you actually have to know that parents can become individual. Obviously, we need to operate at the group level, but what they can do on an individual level, three quick things. Number one, don't try anything that you don't know.
There you go. There you go.
But guess what? Most parents do not read things or be interested in finding them, even when we don't understand them.
Thank
So they do this is we love to get the schools, the benefit of the doubt. We love to give the teachers the benefit of the doubt. One of the reasons we got so many black children in special ed, even though we didn't get nothing about children, because somebody who doesn't even live with us knows that they need special ed. We went ahead and agreed, giving them once again the benefit of the doubt. You cannot afford to give the school the benefit of the doubt. The school plays a central role in the maintenance and perpetuation of white supremacy because it prepares black children to fail. It prepares black children for that position that the American social order has already predetermined they should obtain. Number two, okay, a parent has to get comfortable saying no.
Thank you. Thank you.
Black parents, mothers and fathers, are very uncomfortable with saying no to white people. I don't think it's anything special about the school system. I think this goes back to 4 centuries of indoctrination who were absolutely made to feel that we were inferior, that the white man is superior in anything that emanates from his or her mouth is the gospel truth. So we don't feel comfortable rejecting the advances of white people. Learn how to say no in this way for your child. And then the third thing that black parents need to start doing, let me say stop doing, and that is going to school meetings by themselves. They need to stop going to school meetings with someone else because schools are bullies. I know. I work in them. Schools will bully you just like a gangster would. They like to get the single black mother come in there by herself. So the principal and the vice principal and the dean of students and the classroom teacher and the reading specialist can gang up on her. And because they're white and have more powers than she has more often than not, she once again gives them the benefit of the doubt. Never, ever go to a school meeting by yourself. Bring 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Bring relatives. Let them know that we are a family. Nothing worse than a single black mother who shows up, either calling outright or evidencing through her behavior that she don't have any support. A single black mother without support, her kids are definitely more likely special ed and low expectations.
So I want to put a scale on this problem. I want to numerically, okay, I know we were talking about numbers a minute ago, but I want to scale this for us. Roughly 16 to 17% of all children in the public school systems in the United States are black children, right? When we look at the number of children who are in children who are identified as having what they refer to as an educable mental retardation. Don't get mad at the word. That's the word that they use, the clinical word, mental retardation. 37% of all of the kids who are identified as having an educable mental retardation, meaning that you could teach them in a regular classroom, are African children. 37%. We're only 16 to 17% of the student population, 37% in that category. In the category of children with trainable, trainable as opposed to educable, trainable mental retardation, like you see with the kids at Goodwill and whatnot, right? That you can teach them how to pull the carts and whatnot, at Wegmans. Stop laughing, okay? 27% of those children who are identified as trainable with a trainable mental retardation are black, and 27% of the children who are identified as having serious emotional disturbance, 27% of them are black, in a population in which only 16 to 17% of the total population is black. I just want you to understand the scaling of this problem. This is not just people saying stuff because they superficially, see things, in the classroom. This is their numbers. These are not Nate's numbers. This is from the National Center for Education Statistics. This is not Nate's numbers, okay? So Dr. Johnson, we have a caller hanging on. Hold on one second. Bring that call in. Hi, caller. Are you there? Hey, brother, come on. All right.
Love, Baba.
Sure.
My question is, if not special education, should we have specialized education? Because not all students learn the same way, and we need to teach the way students learn if students are learning the way they teach. So how can we take control over the development and education of our own people?
Good question. Dr. Johnson? Mm-hmm.
Focus on learning styles, we can focus on teaching methods, we can focus on the pedagogy, build instruction. It will not matter because the person teaching the child doesn't care about it. In other words, imagine I got two teachers with one position. One of them had all of them. Other one first out of college, very little experience. But she is absolutely optimistic about her ability to impact the children. Guess what I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with the one with the heart. Because as we know, and the research shows us, it is the teacher's belief in the child's ability to learn, which is the single most important predictor of classroom achievement, not the pedagogy, not whether or not the teacher practices great. You understand? Not the instruction, not specialized learning. Her faith in the child. The tree will only grow if it's nurtured with faith.
Yep.
Just as in church, the same thing in school. If there is no faith in those children's ability to achieve at a high level, they won't. So more than the paperwork, it's the personnel. If I got to choose between great teachers and a lousy curriculum, or a great curriculum and lousy teachers, give me the great teachers and the lousy curriculum. Why? Because despite the curriculum of great
Teacher.
has faith in
Yes.
that's going to make sure they learn irregardless of what's going on.
Yep.
Personnel matters more than anything we learn.
That was revealed in the research of Leon Pettigrew, who wrote an analysis on the Coleman report. And what he said was that if you you could find in the South those one-room schoolhouses where you had 9 classrooms, 9 grades being taught in one room. And those kids were graduating, getting through school, going on to secondary school, and going on to college, in spite of the lack of resources, because of the passionate commitment that the teachers had for those children. So it wasn't about, whether or not you had the best, chemistry labs and, swimming pools and a nice track, on campus and whatnot. It was about the teachers. If the teachers really wanted it, and the principal was really the education leader of those children, people become what they hear. If you're the important person in somebody's life and you're the one that's constantly, helping people to understand what they can be, they will turn into what you are directing them to turn into. And if that's not where you're coming from, the kids will turn into people who are not, turning into what you say you want them to turn into. I think that's the answer to Kamal's question, Dr. Johnson. I think that you're right on the money on that. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Lord have mercy.
That sounds true. I think we have a caller hanging on here. Let me see if I can grab that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there? Hey, Bob.
What's going on. And moreover, I think it's the system itself. I told you that my family had to move into a new school system to get the type of education that they were looking for. And I will say something. I told you that I was once told teacher gets paid whether I learn or not. So it was up to me to receive the education. But I think it's more what the doctor says, it's the dumbing down of America. And Nathan said something at the beginning of the program about wrapping your mind around something. I'll just say to you, my friend, is try wrapping your mind around the sun and see how big that truly is. God bless you, my friend. Talk to you later.
Okay, I'm not going to wrap my mind around this Sunday. I'm going to stick right down here. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
Well, you've absolutely correct. I definitely believe that what we know, people just believe and know. And now we Drug Administration a couple of months ago, they finally admitted, although they didn't fully admit, but they admit that certain immunizations related to incidents in autism. They didn't say all of them. The truth of the matter is the whistleblowers, former researchers from the FDA, have confirmed that almost all of at least most immunizations actually trigger autism, but we do at least have an admission that at least one or some immunizations trigger autism. If you go back, okay, I'm 40 years old. I went through my entire grade school education without a single autism class. I'm sure the same is true for you all and for most of you.
In fact, when I was going to school, there was no such thing as autism.
Me neither.
Mm-hmm.
Someone would ask the question, if the immunizations are leading to autism, why stop giving them out? Well, there's two reasons for that. One has to do with capitalism, and the other has to do with accountability. The reason why they cannot stop the immunizations is because if they admit in court that these immunizations are primarily responsible for the rise of autism, you have a situation where nearly every parent in America could sue the government for knowingly subjecting their children, okay, to chemicals that clearly cause harm. That's a clear violation of the 14th Amendment, equal protection. Okay, not the Constitution, of the Constitution, life, liberty, and happiness. So that is a legal nightmare for the United States government. The only payout that will be greater than a class action payout to the parents of autistic and thought to be autistic children would be reparations.
Reparations.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Reparations.
That immunizations cause autism is because it's a billion-dollar industry. I mean, you're actually selling to the government a chemical that every child born in this country, black, white, Latino, Arab, East Indian, whatever of their racial background, if they're born in this country, except the parents were found to fight back, they will get this. Do you know how much money that is? You don't even have to market the product. It's guaranteed because who are imminent are healthier than children who are
That or not.
like that.
Dr. Johnson, I want to get one more call in before the end of this hour. Let me get that call real quick. Hi, caller, are you there?
Good morning, Nate. How you doing?
All right, how you doing?
Okay, I just want to just say I'm glad to hear this doctor speaking about what I knew when I became an administrator in 1991. Buffalo Schools is aware of learning styles and effective education on kids and so forth. And so we're dealing with the different generation of parents. And thank God for you for having this brother on the air to deal with this new generation of parents to let them realize the racism aspect is still going on in this day and time. God bless you.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Johnson, let's tell people again, we're going to be at St. Luke's AME Zion Church. This is going to be on September 9th. What time is that going to be?
4 p.m.
4 p.m.
Open up at 2 p.m. The address again, St. Luke AME Zion, 314 East Ferry Street, FRRY. All children 17 and old and younger, all children 17 and younger are absolutely free. All eligible 65 years of age and older, absolutely free. They don't need a ticket. They just need to have ID confirming that they're 65 and older. Everyone between the ages of 18 and 64 will need to get tickets, and they can do so through my website, drumarjohnson.com, or they can go directly to Prince of Pan-Africanism, and you spell Africa with a K, Prince of Pan-Africanism.eventbrite.com. They can also text my phone for the flyer or the link, 215-989-9858. I repeat, 215-989-9858.
Excellent, excellent. And if you don't know where St. Luke's is, okay, that means you probably don't live in the African part of Buffalo, because we all know St. Luke's, okay? But if you don't remember, near Lons, right in the corner of Lonsdale and East Ferry, that's a block off of Jefferson Avenue. We have one more caller sneaking in here in the last hour. All right, caller, how you doing out there?
Yes, greetings, Sam. Everything is well.
Jumbo.
Doing great. How you doing, Jumbo?
Well, just a quick comment. August 17th, Marcus Garvey's birthday, for his 30th anniversary. Dr. Johnson, I know you know, yesterday in Jamaica, they had a very large Marcus Garvey celebration. You were there a year ago. Can you talk to us on this last minute about the importance of us recognizing our own power and taking things into our own control and removing it from them, us or I and I, where it's us, our creator, our destiny, and removing it from us. And just talk about that with education and creating our own schools and things of that nature.
Okay.
You know, one of the reasons why we continue to walk in this quickly, take one step forward, two steps backwards, because we start to realize that the issue is not racism, not education, it's not resource. We're lacking is the psychological, the courage, the commitment, the consistency, the accountability, the passion, the camaraderie. It's all in the psychological. That's where we are. You know, Dr. Carter, you look at this education of the people we're talking about. You know, if you control a man's thinking, you don't have to determine whether he goes to the back door or not. He'll go to the back door on his own. And when he gets to the back door, he will make his own to walk out. Of course, I will walk into the side. Like we said, without confidence in yourself, in the race of life, with confidence you have one even before you have started. That's why I believe the road back to redemption begins with education and economics.
Economics, absolutely. So listen, we only got about 26 seconds left, not even quite that. We're talking about Dr. Johnson is going to be in Buffalo at St. Luke's AME Zion Church. It's going to be at 4 o'clock, 314 East Ferry Street. All children under age 18 and all adults over 65 can come in for free. Everyone else, I don't know what the price is for $25 for adults. For those in between, we're hoping to see hundreds of us there. That's why we went to this venue rather than going to the library, because we needed to have enough space for all of the people that ought to be coming to help us to focus on this issue. This is the number one threat facing us right now. We are losing generation after generation after generation, and they're getting more and more successful in assassinating these generations. And so we have to fight. We have to fight now. We have to fight with urgency. Dr. Johnson, I really appreciate all of the work that you do and all of the insight that you shared. I know you had a lot more you're going to share with us when you're in Buffalo.
Without question, looking forward to it again. Thanks to Sister Patricia for helping me get the word out.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
My brother for having me back on the show. I'll let you all greetings from your brother down here. And that's kind of the real agenda, as you know, this is the 186th anniversary of the National War. It's also the anniversary of the Nation Revolution. It's also the anniversary of the Georgia. Gotta go.
All right.